we had the session going on for today, we were literally looking at how, how to be a leader, how to build a team, and being able to be an effective leader, culture. And I think we then decided to have something interactive and engaging. And we had the pleasure and opportunity of actually having with us today, I think, Mr. Faiz. Faiz, you're already on the call?
Yeah. Hello, good evening.
Awesome. Yes, so we have Mr. Faiz. Let me take a moment to formally introduce you. Let me share my screen here, just a moment. All right, so with us today is Mr. Faiz Bashir, who is the CEO for Flexor. He has significant experience in the software industries in terms of both technical and business perspectives. Faiz is ambitious and enthusiastic in improving the quality of education in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa using technology. He is also passionate about revolutionizing the Nigerian software industry by providing quality and valuable software that meets the international software engineering standards. For ladies and gentlemen, would like you all to welcome Mr. Faiz, who is going to be having a coffee chat session, which is meant to be a very chilled out session this afternoon. Welcome, Faiz.
Thank you once again. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Looking forward to an interactive discussion.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. So how we will conduct this, we'll have a couple of questions, but within the questions, we will also have engagement with the participants in specific areas. But yes, so Faiz, maybe just to give you a brief, and I do know that we had reached out to you. So the Bridge to MassChallenge Nigeria Bootcamp is working in partnership with the national, it's an initiative actually with the National Information Technology Development Agency. We are actually a group of 30 startups ranging across different sectors. We have a majority who are within the agriculture sector, but these are all startups in Nigeria, operating in Nigeria, looking to scale and build teams. And so we are honored to have you with us today. And we literally have been going through different themes of actually, building our startups. And today we just want to learn from somebody who has been at the game for a moment. So maybe just to start us off, in knowing more about you, if you are to describe yourself in 3 words, what are these 3 words that you would use?
Wow, that's a tough one. But I think I'll say I'm a learner. I'm an introvert, surprisingly. And,
okay.
I'm simple.
A learner, an introvert, and you are simple. If I could just, dig a bit deeper on that one, what quality do you think is important for any startup leader operating in Africa or in Nigeria right now? What one quality or characteristics you think is important to have?
Yeah, so I think the first one I mentioned, that's my characteristics as being a learner. I think it's really important, right, for founders to have, because experience have shown that successful businesses is mostly about learning, and improving what you are doing great, and then where you have mistakes, you try to address that. So it's important to be open, to from internal and external, right? That's even from your staff, right, and also from the customers, to be ready to, collect as much feedback as possible, learn from that, right, and then keep improving. So that's really important. So you need to be focused and resilient and just keep learning. There's no need to be, to always regret or complain. Any experience is just see it as a learning point, and and learn from it and move on.
Okay, so learning, you need to be focused, you need to be resilient. These are all some of the things that you believe are important. So maybe just to, introduce to the 30 startups who I know they've already had a moment to Google your name and your company, but maybe can you take us on a journey of FlexiSoft? When did you guys start? How many of you started? How did the team grow over, the period? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And I think I have told this story many times, but I enjoy telling it, and I hope it's adding value or making impact to founders that get to learn about it. But officially, I think we started Flexor in 2010. That's just after my completing my master's, and we decided to go into this fully. So two of us started then, and me and one of our co-founder, Abubakar Manga, were the full-time staff. So, but before then, I'll take us back a little. The genesis is actually even while we're still in school, right? And as far back as my secondary school days, where I was lucky to be introduced to computers and programming. In that time, I'm talking about 97 or so. We are taking things for granted now, right? We have computers and we know about coding and all these things, right? But in those days, is a rare opportunity. So I started building a result compiler software, just to looking at how our teachers used to compile our results manually, and very tedious, taking too long. So I started, while I was learning programming, I thought I could solve that problem. So it was something I started, developing, learning, and so on. But the first opportunity I had was in university, and I just finished my 200 level, and there was a new university in Adamawa State, and they were looking for software to computerize their result processing. So I had the opportunity to build that, and before I graduated, we had the other version for primary and secondary schools. So actually, before that 2010, we've started selling, right? And we had a number of schools as customers, so which I can say is one of the, things I was lucky about, to have early customers to really validate what I'm doing and give us more energy to continue to do that. So in 2010, we started fully, as a company, and fast forward, today we've grown to, to about 150 staff in FlexiSoft. We have, about 700 schools as our customers, both primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. So we focus in software for education. So we have school management software, we have e-learning, and some other initiatives around education, how to use technology to improve education. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So from you took us way back, which is pretty important, as I think as startup founders, I think sometimes you see a startup and you assume it was just like 2 years, 3 years, but it's been years in the making. Just a moment, Etekon, can you please stop screen sharing so that we're able to spotlight Mr. Faiz Bashir? Thank you. So actually, I would like to dig deep in terms of your journey. So today we were looking at building company culture and being able to do, recruitment of your first staff. So I'm going to take you back. So you spoke about, you got out of doing your master's and you started this with a co-founder. So it's somebody that you knew. But, talk to us about what did it take for you guys to build your first, to hire your first staff? What were you looking for in the first staff that you actually onboarded? And then I will follow that up in terms of how is the process going on right now? Like how different was it initially hiring and right now?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, and it's something I'm passionate about, talking about culture in an organization, which is very, very important. And I'll talk more about that. But in terms of hiring, I think FlexiServe, we have a unique story, kind of, and it was fortunate for us, right? So at that time, we weren't distracted by, say, raise funds and then hire, this VP of sales or CTO and so on, right? So I think our current CTO, Alamin, I would say he is the first, he's one of the early guys, that came on board. And it wasn't like a hire. Actually, he just finished his NYSC and he was passionate about, programming as well. So he has some background and was still learning. But I think the passion, that's what, that was the drive. That's what brought him in, and we weren't talking about, how much is my salary and so on. We're just thinking of, build this and let's get the customers and be able to sustain ourselves at that moment. Then, yeah, most of the early people that joined also, I think, were mostly interns, right, that later on became full-time staff. Now, if I can recall correctly, I think the first, I would say, formal hire we did is for one of our designers, Ibrahim Alkali, who is currently in Finland now. But I think he was also a new graduate, but he was creative and smart. I think, and that has set the culture for us. So we focus more on people that are smart, creative, and have the interest, right, to come and contribute. So at that moment, we weren't looking for, this experience, you have worked 10 years in this and that. Right? So what we look at really was, I'm a fan of Google, so I always try to, to compare our standards with Google, and we know people in Google are smart and so on. So I think that's what, how we attracted people with similar characteristics to come on board FlexiServe. But of course, fast forward as we grow, we have to put structures and processes in place. So what we look out for really is, like I mentioned, is smart creative. And this is something that's actually coined by, Eric Schmidt, and Jonathan in Google. And a smart creative is that person that, they are like all around, right? They are technically sound, they are business savvy, right? And they, they don't accept the norm. Right? They are always looking at doing things differently and how to solve problems. So these are the kind of structure and process we have in place. That we look at all those things, and before we we accept, and we are also open to, like I said, not necessarily, as we grow, of course, some roles we require experience, but we are still open to, young graduates that are really smart and creative. And from what we've realized, quickly they are able to learn, especially when they come to an environment that they are experienced people and, that are ready to share and the knowledge. So more about culture, I think is very critical, and the culture we build at Flexor is being open. Right, so we are very, very open in Flexor. We, we communicate, collaborate, and share a lot, and we encourage, growth. So we want everyone to reach their potential as much as possible. So we pay a lot of attention in terms of how you continue to learn, and grow. So in a summary, I think that's the kind of culture we built in FlexiServe, make the environment really, open, and people are not scared to, to contribute.
Okay. Thank you for all of that. So I'm pretty interested because you spoke about, initially when you started the company, some of the people who were your interns actually, moved up the ladder and became full staff. So do you guys still have like an intern program that has that particular, stretch that you're able to come into full-time opportunities as it stands? And I'm just curious, do you sit in all hiring roles right now, or you at least have a team that is doing that for you?
Okay, the first part, right, for internship, sure, definitely. We've seen we even need it now more than ever, right? The talent pool is really shrinking because the demand is growing, and now it's a global competition, especially when it comes to software engineers. So we are even doubling up on that, right? We currently have a fully structured internship. We have an internship coordinator that is managing that program and is open to anyone that is willing to, to learn. And like you said, that's really an opportunity for you to get entry into FlexServe as long as you prove, you're up to the task. So you just you can check out flexiserve.com/internship to get all the details and how to apply. So yeah, that's very important to us, and we'll continue to invest more in that. So for the second part, yeah, the hiring, I think we have a structure now. We have the HR, and the team leads, because here we want the team leads really, they take ownership in a lot of things, right? So it's not, what you want, you come up with your own requirements, need, and the people you need to hire, you drive that. So the HR is more like support, managing the process. People apply, you select, you invite for interview, and so on. Right. So I think a lot happened, before I actually get to see, some of the recommendation and so on. So I'm proud of the team leads. They really take ownership and drive.
Awesome. Nice, awesome. So maybe just continuing on that one, team leads are taking ownership. You guys FlexiServe started 2010 officially. So in essence, this is 2022, that's 12 years in operation. And within these years, there's been different roles you've been playing as a startup founder. And so I'm curious, and the rest of us are curious, because again, we are all looking at building our our companies, and understanding what are the different responsibilities and managing it. So if you look back, 12 years from now, so 2010 when Flexi staff was starting, because most of us are within, 1 to 5, 7 years of operation. How were you able to manage your time? Because there is work, there is life, there is everything. What were you doing to manage your time? But also, what things did you do for your company that were important and that helped to bring about the change in FlexiSAF within the early stages of your company?
Yeah, I think this is another interesting question, and every startup founder, right, one way or the other, will have to go through this, this journey. So for me, my role has been evolving as the company grows. When we started, of course, I would say the first engineer at FlexiSAF, writing the code, building the app and so on. And, also involved in selling, I had the business savviness, so I wasn't just keen about building, right? But I want to sell. I want to see customers using this thing and adding value to them. And when by the time you start getting customers, you realize that you need to give them support, as well. So in the early days, we Abakar Manga was, I think he focused more on business development. And myself and Alamin, we were writing code, providing support, and also doing the selling as well. So that's, from what Steve Blank says, the author of 4 Steps to the Epiphany, which gave rise to the Lean Startup. Right, these are a real startup. They have to go through this journey. When you start, it's really about getting the product market fit. You build something and you try to sell. Are there people that need it adding any value? Are they willing to pay? Right. So initially, I think that's what engrossed us. We were fully, involved in that. Right. But as we grow, like I explained, we realize, it's not scalable. I can't be everywhere, where there are some demand. We have to update the software, right? And you have to, go out to give support and so on. So what helped me really is from day one, I identified that it's about team, right? It's not about few of us that are like Superman and can do everything. So that really helped me. And when we're lucky to have smart interns, like I mentioned earlier, and we started delegating some of these roles, right? So that's how we continue to evolve. So knowing that you really need a team to build an organization is very critical. Then as you grow, you identify what are the important things you need to manage, and put a structure or process around, right? So that's how we continue to grow. And for me, with time, now I'm fully into, leadership. I've done coding, I've done support, selling. So now my problem is, so it's not just about building and managing customers. Managing the staff is a full-time job, on its own. So I'm more into that leadership, how to keep the vision alive, and how to continue to motivate, people, how to, learn from other experiences, to put these structures and processes in place, at the same time allowing innovation to strive. So we try to allow people to have autonomy, really, to an extent, to be creative and not have bureaucratic and rigid structures, that stifles innovation.
Wow. So if I'm to capture that, it's obviously you have to learn the art, which comes back to your first point when you're speaking about you have to be a learner, right? Because you went through different stages between being a coder, doing the support staff, going out to sell. And as you did mention initially that you're an introvert, but you still had to go out and sell, to now being in a position of being a leader and managing your team. So in essence, like you need to be able to play different roles depending on what tune is playing at that particular point in time within your startup. And so to be flexible enough and willing and ready to actually take on these different activities. I think you touched on a little bit, which I would just like to tease a little bit with regards to product market fit. So we had a whole discussion, I think last week, on product market fit with another session speaker that came through. But I'm wondering, so when FlexiSoft was starting, what were some of the key things that your team did to try and figure out in terms of, you saw the need in terms of this is something that can actually change or transform the community, but what were the steps that you went through to actually make sure that you delivered a product that actually can sell, and a product that, because you might have a product that is needed, but maybe you're not selling. So what are those maybe tips that you can share with the startups in terms of when they're looking at doing their product market fit, what are the things, actionable things they should
do? So talking about product market fit, for us, I think we were fortunate to have early customers. I know that even though it's not like the trajectory was just going up, right? You have these early customers, and at some point it starts flattening and you'll be wondering what happened, right? So it's actually the early visionaries, that are ready to try new things that would buy your software. So I think that helped us. But what is more important about product market fit is, going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, is learning. And so we didn't make the mistake of locking ourselves, in the office and just build. Maybe for 1 year we are just building. No, we start reaching out to customers, very early, to even see whether there's a need for them and what feedback they had. So in terms of product market fit, right, reaching out to your customers very early is critical, and listening is very important. So because most times customers, whatever they tell you, they are really on track. Right? They may not be able to say the problem exactly how it is, right? But it's your job to try to understand what their challenge is and how you can solve that for them. So yeah, we were able to get these new customers, and all the feedback we got, we would quickly, upgrade or implement those feedback, go out again, and so on. So we, that need, since the one was obvious, but like I mentioned, at some point, there were other challenges. Many schools maybe didn't have the computers or infrastructure, right? And many school owners too don't see the need. They are used to their own old ways of doing things. So we had to just keep reach out to as many people as we can, identify those that have that are interested and committed to even try. Right? So another strategy we use is this trial method, where we offer you 1 term free trial. If you like it, you can subscribe. So I think that's another strategy. You need to be able to give some bonus, or distinct incentive to your customers, right? To be able to willing to try your software. But in summary, I think releasing early and learning from your customer is very critical, rather than just building your own ideas, assuming that if you take it out, people will rush to buy.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question, but then for anybody who has a burning question, you can either write it on the chat box, or once I finish this question and Faiz responds, you can raise your hand, and I will unmute you and you can go ahead and ask your question. So this one is more around looking at the journey that FlexiSAF has gone through, and you have by default being part of. What, if any, is something that one or two things that you say that you would have changed, that you think would have brought about greater transformation in a shorter time span? Or if I can rephrase that, what are those one or two things that you wish you knew then that you know now, that would have the impact or the trajectory for FlexiSAF would have been much more faster within the 12 years, if any?
Okay, what could that be? I think I wish I had more business experience that I have now. Probably we would have adopted a different strategy in terms of growth. I feel we could have grown bigger than we are now. Notwithstanding, we are still contented, and we believe in gradual or natural growth, right? Then in terms of leadership too, I think from day one, I didn't really pay attention to that. It's more like, it came to a point where I have to just, focus on that aspect. So probably if the kind of experience I have now, if I had it then, I think some things would have handled it differently. But honestly, I don't allow these things to distract me, right? The learning part I mentioned, for me, is my driver. So all these things, I just see it as a learning process. Sometimes if you have opportunity very early, you might even blow it. So to learn and grow naturally, I think is more important.
Okay. Thank you so much, Faiz, for sharing with us your insights and, more importantly, the journey of FlexiSAF over the last 12 years. I would like to open it up to a few questions, if there are any, and it might not necessarily be questions, it could just be a clarification. If there's any from the team members, you can just do the raise hand feature and unmute yourself. Or you could write in the question.
Hello.
Hey, Adobe. Oh, yes. Adedayo, welcome.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for taking the section. It's really insightful. My question really is, like, how do you handle the funding in those early days? That's the question I want to ask. And if probably you've raised since then, yeah.
Yeah, this is another important, and frequent question by startups. And for Flexor, really likely is being bootstrapped, which means that we haven't really raised like VC funds, right? But we've raised like funds from family and friends. And I think they always say that first funding you get, if you are not able to convince your family and friends in what you're doing, it's more difficult to convince other people. So there's also There's Bill Kenny. I think he's an investor in the US. This is popular presentation. It always makes investment versus revenue. Which one is more important? Right? So sometimes it's more like chicken and egg problem. But honestly, I think if you are able to identify, what you want to do, what problem you want to solve, and you have the, the initial skill, whether it's, sorry, I'm giving example of software mostly, right? So maybe you have the skill to code. And so making some progress, tangible progress to show, I think will always attract people, maybe the right partners, or investors to come to you. And then traction is very key. You have to show the some results. You have to prove that, oh, this is what customers need this and they are willing to pay. So I think this will help you to, if you get it right, it's at some point you should be able to choose what investors do you even want to come on board. Because it's not just about money. You also want to have the right partners, people that align to your vision, and so on. So for us in Flexor, basically it's more of the family and friends, early funds, and mostly the other things we used to grow is the revenues, early revenues we're able to get from our customers.
Okay. So, essentially bootstrapping and, getting the product market fit right so that the revenue is what now keeps the business growing and not necessarily seeking for extra funds. Any follow-up question that anybody has for Faiz? Again, you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand and go ahead and ask. Yes, Adedayo, was that a new question? Come through.
I just want to follow up with like another question. He actually said he has onboarded like a lot of schools, and definitely I think from what I'm hearing is in edutech or sector. I like what we do here. We actually like schools are part of our target. I don't know if you have any strategies in onboarding schools, because once you get there, sometimes they tell you you have to have management meeting. You follow up and all of that. So I don't know if probably there's any strategy that you've seen with your experience over the years working with schools, big schools. Definitely, that's also what our targets are right now. That we can probably use to land more sales or get their attention better. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand your question, and I think every industry have their unique characteristics, and there are some basic things it's important to learn and understand, right? So for example, even at Flexor, when we hire maybe some sales people from another industry, when they come to the school industry, they realize it's really something different, right? In other industries, you could easily maybe project your monthly target and try to meet up. So in the school industry, it's a bit different. So what you need to learn is to understand the cycle, the sales cycle. How does it happen, right? So in school, I'll tell you for free that you should look at least 1 year cycle. That's how their budgeting works, right? They mostly budget in the beginning of the session, and anything you bring might not easily fly. So you have to understand these periods, then and build your sales pipeline, based on that. So from what you mentioned also, I think it's also about the sales strategy and trying to, to meet the right people, do your qualification, right? Very well, right? Don't rely on vanity metrics or, or just vanity, I would say, commitments, right? If you don't meet the right person, people will give you commitments that are not real. When you meet the right person, that's not their priority, and so on. So you have to build your sales pipeline, like I explained, have the leads, and be able to understand the sales cycle, right? So because the results you get today is not what you do today, it's actually maybe what you've done 12 months ago. So you need to have that pipeline, and so you at every point in time you have like some things that are matured and will give you the results while you are still, sowing sowing more seed that you hope is going to ripe. So it may, if you are just starting, it may take time to build to that maturity, but it's you have to just plan and be strategic and wait for the right time to see the results.
Okay. We have space for one more follow-up question. That was a good one, getting actual insight in a space that you are operating in. So I hope that was valuable information for you to use. Any follow-up questions or comments from the rest of the team before I get to release? Calling once, calling twice. Okay, cool, Adedaya, that's awesome. Calling thrice. Oh, we have a taker? No taker? Okay, maybe just to round this off, I think I would like to thank you for your time, but what is actionable advice that you would give to any startup founder in this day and age as we're continuing to build our startups and gain revenues, etc.? But what is that one advice that you would actually give to somebody listening in who has their startup?
Okay, so I think it really is exciting, and something I would encourage all of you to continue to pursue. Right. At the same time, it has its own ups and downs, right? Just to understand that it's part of it, right? And like I mentioned, you keep learning, right? And try to really you have to be very honest, to yourselves, right? And the business. Don't allow some vanity metrics or some kind of data to deceive you. You have to be brutal honest, right? Is this thing working? If it's not, what do I do to make it work? Don't be too rigid, on something that clearly you can see that it's not working, because you getting to a sustainable point very early in time is important, right? So if you are just starting, maybe you are lucky, you don't have responsibilities, and so on. Sooner or later, these things will catch up. And if your business does not get to a sustainable level, right, which means you can be able to continue to build and make progress, right, grow the business, it's become very difficult, right, to meet up, and realities will catch up with you. The next thing you will hear is at home they will be telling you, please go and look for a 9-to-5 job. This thing is not working, and so on. So yeah, try to identify what you have passion in and what is really working. Be very realistic. Be real about the environment. We not all of us have to be Apple and Google, but what impact are we making, for ourselves, and creating a company that will even make impact for others? I think that should be your goal. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Faiz, and thank you so much for your availability today and for sharing with us, Flexisoft story, but more so just for us to gain some wisdom from you in terms of leading a team, in terms of being able to grow, from a startup, 12 years, and really a different venture in terms of looking at the aspect of revenues and as opposed to saying investment revenue. It's a chicken and egg thing in terms of looking at it. But essentially, thank you for your time, and we greatly appreciate your insights, and we will be in touch more and more so.